Hey guys, it's Kerry, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at fonts. So we're going to go to replit.com, my repls, and we're going to open up our About Me that we've been working on this whole unit. So we've got a bunch of color, style, various HTML elements. We also probably have images, although my project doesn't have any images right now. One thing that I think could be really cool to improve this is to change the fonts. So fonts are actually a little bit tricky when it comes to styling because every computer has a different collection of fonts on them. So for my MacBook, if I want to see all the fonts on my computer, I can just type in font book. And clicking through here, this will show me all of the fonts that are on my computer. Now, your computer may actually have different fonts. So a problem can be if I tell my website to display something using Avenir, if your computer doesn't have Avenir, then the website will look totally different for you. So there's a really nice way to work around this problem of the computers having different fonts. And that's to use a font that exists already online. So there's a really nice collection of fonts called Google Fonts. So I'm going to type in Google Fonts here. And I'm going to click the first link. And this is a collection of fonts that already exist on the internet. To get there, I have to click the Fonts button. And what I can do is, because these already exist on the internet, I can link these fonts to my site. Not like with a hyperlink, like where you click it and it takes you to the page, but I can ask my site to download these fonts for the user, and then I can use those fonts. This sounds a bit complicated, but Google's made it pretty easy for us to do. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to actually find a font that you like. So you might go into categories, and you can experiment with all of these different categories. I want to have a big, nice display font for my main title. I also think if my font is in, there's not an English option here, but I think that it's a Latin alphabet, then I'll be able to, okay, these look pretty cool. Lobster is one of my favorites. It always reminds me a little bit of Instagram, so I'll probably go with Lobster for my About Me title. When I want to use a font, what I do is I click on the tile, and scroll down here. And then it looks like in terms of the options, I have this option here, regular 400 to add. And I'm going to use this option. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press not the download family here, but the little plus on the side. And what that will do is it will create all of the information I need for my website to preload this font and then to apply this font as a style. So if I look at it, there's two lines or two sections of code here. This first section looks like it's HTML. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these 3 lines of HTML, and I need all 3. And I'm going to put those in my HTML file. And where I'm going to put them is, we haven't talked about this, but this line of HTML code right here is the thing that links our style spreadsheet to our HTML file. If we delete this line of code, all of my styles will disappear, because now that style file will no longer be linked to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually paste these font tags, related tags, above that style. And now what that will do is it will say, okay, when you load the HTML, load those fonts, and then load the style sheet. And the order matters here, I think, because we have to load those fonts first before we use them in our style sheet. The last step here is it gives us the CSS code for it. So I'm going to take font family here. I'm going to go to style.css. And I'd like to apply this font to my H1. So let me put that there. Now I'm going to pop my website open in a new tab. And you can see that my About Me has a totally different font than the rest of the page. Or my H1 has a totally different font. I'd also like to change the font for the text on the page. So let me take a look back here. I'm going to go to fonts. And for the text on the page, I don't really want to use the display one. I'd rather use something like, maybe monospace would be cool. Make it look like super robotic. So let's see. I kind of like Inconsolata. So I'm going to click that one. I'm going to scroll down, and I get to choose which of these I want to use. I'm going to do regular 400 still. So I'll click that option with the plus button. And now when I look at this tab on the side, it's really updated. It's important here. I've got two different fonts being loaded. So in my review, I've got Lobster and Inconsolata. And when I look at the links here, these are actually updated as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy these three. And when I say updated, what I mean is it looks like it's loading both families, Inconsolata and Lobster. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste that. I'm going to delete the old one that has just Lobster. And I'm going to paste in the new one that has Inconsolata and Lobster. And now let's see. In terms of my CSS, it looks like this is the one that I want to use on my H1 because I wanted Lobster for my H1. And I want to use this one on, say, my paragraphs. So I'm going to copy this one. I'm going to go to style.css because this appears to be a property value. And I'm going to apply this to my paragraphs. So I'm going to create a paragraph selector and then this here. And now when I reload the page, you'll be able to see that all the paragraphs will change their fonts as well to something more robotic. So there's one last thing to talk about here, which is you might notice that for the paragraphs and for the H1, when we download the fonts, it will list two different values here. So the font family here was Lobster and then cursive. When it lists multiple fonts, what this means is this is the order that's kind of like a backup plan, I guess. So the first font that's going to try to load is Lobster. And if it has a problem loading Lobster because maybe Google Fonts is down or something like that, it will load the font in cursive. So let me show you what this does. If I accidentally misspell Lobster here, like Lobstera, then what's going to happen is it's going to try to apply the Lobstera font to H1, but it won't be able to because that font doesn't exist. So we'll move to the next option, cursive. And now you can see that it's in like this very weird defaulty cursive looking thing. And that is what happened. But I want it to be Lobster, so I'm going to delete the A. And now Lobster should work. So it should go to Lobster. All right. That's fonts, basically. I always use Google Fonts because that way I don't have to worry about do they have the fonts on their computer already. These 3 lines of code in our HTML preload those fonts so that every computer will have them. And then we can use them on our sites freely.